Well, thanks. This is really, I think, a real gift to be able to speak to you about Art's work. Art Stevens has been a valued member of our community for years, and he really helped at St. Mike's University Church. About a year and a half ago, we lost our vicar chaplain, who was a priest who left our community. And when that happened, it wasn't a surprise. We planned it, but what we planned was to have Art Stevens lead us in 6 weeks of discernment process so that we could experience, what we were feeling with the departure of the vicar chaplain, and then discern what our hopes were for the future and how we would, move toward accomplishing those goals. And so he did. He was very effective. He made a big difference at St. Michael's because he was one of the things about Art is that it's his vulnerability. He's willing to wear his vulnerability on his sleeve, right? He's authentic about that. And that makes all of us relax and feel mutually that, Art isn't above us. He's with us. He's right there with us. And so he demonstrates, really, he walks the talk because he lives and he models what he preaches. And what he modeled for us was how estrangement happens, that sense of um, when we feel abandonment or betrayal. And, when people leave in our lives, when people depart, we have this sense of abandonment and betrayal, even if it isn't, intentional, and even if we feel like, oh, well, we don't even recognize it in ourselves because we're not children, right? We're adults. We need to cope with these, departures in our lives because they happen. But no, Art was really able through his mandala process to get us to experience, that emotional woundedness that we had of feeling abandoned or betrayed by somebody leaving that was somebody who was important to us. And so he explained how this estrangement happens, and he puts us in touch with our inner feelings. And the work that he does really focuses on the body. And that's what I appreciate is that we experience our, sort of a sensory experience of our feelings, that how our feelings are closely related with the body. And so he uses a mandala, which is a big canvas map that he has painted in circular, sort of circular fashion. There's a path to follow from the outside into the center of this, and it involves using our body for triggering some of these feelings that we're having and recognizing them and then healing them. And there's a breath focus, that he's talking about breath at the same time as healing. And the breath is very important because, when we breathe, and he takes us through breathing exercises, it not only, teaches us to oxygenate, right? We need to bring oxygen into our bloodstream, but it also, implicitly makes our bodies receptive to receiving the spirit. And so it's, an introduction to the spirit world. It's an openness. We become a portal for the spirit. And so it's not only the movement of the body and the recognizing of how our feelings are sensed in our body, but it's also how the breath, is intimately associated with all of that, with our feeling and with our bodies. And that that we're all connected together with, because we are all breathing the same air, and so we're experiencing the same spirit. And that's one of the things I take away from the way Art conducts these sessions with the mandala, and gets us to sort of identify negative expectations, and identifies that expectations are things that we have that protect us from our fears, and that we need, once we recognize a negative expectation, we can sort of move beyond it to recognize the abundance of God, that God is with us. So, for example, in our church, when we identified our hopes for the future, our hope was that God's presence would grow, and the growth of God's presence would be visible and felt. Right, that was our number one hope on a list of hopes. And so, how do we make that become real? I mean, you can say that, but how do you actually live into it? And art not only helped us get going, to get unstuck from where we were feeling abandoned. He got us unstuck in visual ways, in physical ways, because we went through these steps with the mandala. He led us into a state where we were, a bodily state in which we were literally taking the first steps, I think, toward, a chain of events that would allow us to fulfill that hope of, seeing the growth of God's presence visibly and feeling it in our community. Um, so I think that, it was all very mutual, and I love that about the book and the mandala, that there's, art provides leadership, but it's really that leadership, from almost from behind. He's not out there in front all the time. He's encouraging us by being among the people, among the hoi polloi. And so it's all associated with the body, it's associated with the breath, it's associated with the abundance of God's presence, it's associated with art being able to see those things and then help us by being with us, among us, and not in front of us.